Are we on the air?
Am I on the air? You're on the air?
On the air 24/7. Your news talk giant, TNT.
And indeed, we are on the air today, Monday, the 12th of August, 2024. I'm Basil Valentine, sitting in for Patrick Henningsen. Welcome back to the program, where I'm delighted to say I'm joined today by Jason Liosatos, all the way from Devon in England. Welcome to the program, Jason.
Thank you, Basil. Thank you, TNT, and well done, all of you there, for being you and doing your great work. Smelling salts for the master.
That's very kind of you to say so. I'm looking at your website, Jason, and I like your tagline, I must admit, finding strength, peace, and the truth in a world gone mad. I mean, that could be TNT's own slogan.
Well, the thing is, years ago, only just when I wrote the book 13 years ago, it wasn't... I used to get laughed at, Basil, because I used to say things like, I've said for years that at some point, at a critical point in human history, the faces of the evil ones that are the slave masters of the planet will show their faces, like George Orwell's book here. So that is what's happening now. We're seeing we're seeing the actual coming forward of the masters to crush the uprising population, and I knew it was coming. And they're saying you can't wear mask, you can't cover your face in some places. I mean, what Keir Starmer's saying now, I'll give a message to Keir Starmer right here, right now. Yeah, come and put me in jail, because I'll never shut up. I know a lot of the other people that I know, because once we do, and once these threats come down on us, and we all start whimpering in the corner and not being able to speak our minds, we're in serious trouble, because, we're going to talk about community, I know, but you won't even be able to grow a spud or a potato, let alone sort of do anything and create something new. So this is all moving towards that. And Starmer saying he can sentence people for reposting things. I mean, it's absurd. And teaching kids in school now from 5 years old. Today, they said they're going to teach kids to sort of dissenting voices and look for people causing trouble. This is incredible. So it's what it's always been, Basil. It's always been slavery for thousands of years, but it's always been very well hidden and in the guise of freedom for the population. And it never has been. It's always been slavery, except that they've never had to really come forward and show their hand, Basil. Like in lockdown, when we were all banned for interviewing people in London, and we were all taken off the internet, like me and many others. So, but now I think that's coming again.
Yes, that was a great little monologue, Jason. Thank you very much for that. No, I enjoyed it enormously. Let's start with Keir Starmer. Now, he said this morning, it was reported on the X platform, that he doesn't want ministers or MPs talking about the causes of the recent riots, for fear that it would give the issues that the far-right thugs, to use the vernacular term, are so angry about, that it would give those issues some validity. Now, on the reverse side of that, I do want to point out that Tommy Robinson, one of the ringleaders, one of the cheerleaders for the violence, he has very deep ties through the EDL to Mossad and the Israeli government. And we've got a very nasty situation where it seems public opinion amongst the white working class is being weaponized by the Israelis against Muslims in order to try and draw some equivalency between what's happening in Gaza, the evisceration and genocide of the Palestinian people, the ongoing theft of their land and the ethnic cleansing, with completely different issues in Britain around multiculturalism, access to housing, deprivation, inequality, demographic changes, and all the rest of it, lack of integration as well. So it's a very nasty and complicated situation that we found ourselves in, and not one that we've experienced before quite like this, Jason. Not many had this on their bingo card for July, August 2024.
Well said, Basil. You're great at this kind of thing. And let's not forget that these things are going to be used, So that's the sad thing for me, is the more chaotic it gets, it plays right into their hands. And that's not a conspiracy theory thing. It is, because they want to ultimately clamp down and take people's freedoms away. There's no doubt about it. Look, everybody, I'm not a racist. Listen, I was married to a black lady from Cape Town. I came here with her. We had to do the paperwork. Okay. I'm not with her now. Still love her, still speak to her. We had to do the paperwork to get her in. My name's Liosatos from Kefalonia, a Greek island. I can't go on a boat to Kefalonia, Basil, and just turn up there and stay there. I can't do that. But yet there's people coming across here and doing that. We're all brothers and sisters. Let's get it clear. And we're all the same. We're all the same beings, but they're purposely dividing and conquering us. They really, really are. And I was shot at in Cape Town. This is very similar to what happened in Cape Town, Basil, because you couldn't speak against the government, and you couldn't talk about apartheid. It was like almost like it was a mirage. And I was talking about it. I got shot at. I got in terrible trouble. Same when I went to Florida. And it's the same thing here now. That's what's going on. It's coming. It's accelerating. I want to give people a quick analogy. I can't do it because it's too loud. Get a plate, spin it on your table fast, and what happens? It wobbles like this, and it accelerates, and then it shudders to a halt. And I know I'm a dramatic sort of pontificator as an artist, but that is what's happening now, Basil. Things are spinning faster and faster and faster. People everywhere can feel it. No one feels comfortable. It's like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then it shudders to a halt. So I will say to people on the basis of community, act now and start coming together and creating new communities while you still can, because they're going to clamp us down and you won't even be able to grow a potato without permission. And I'm not advocating for it completely, but they're pulling down the ULEZ signs, Basil. People are stepping forward and saying we don't want this anymore. But sometimes that only happens when the sort of clutching hands of the system squeezes so much that people see that their freedoms are being taken completely away, and they're going to milk this one to death, just like they did with the lockdowns. And they're quite enjoying it, actually. You can be sure of that. It's like, here we go. We can make the most of this and shut people's free speech down. And it's very worrying. It really is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we here at Today's News Talk like to think of ourselves as the champions of free speech, and we have people on these programs from all aspects of the political spectrum, some that would be described as far right, others that would be described as far left. They're all human beings. They've all got a point to make, some of them valid. We can agree or disagree, and hopefully have a civilized conversation and aim to try and reach some sort of consensus whereby we can all live in peace and prosperity. That's our aim. But the bedrock of it has to be freedom of speech. Now, the United States, of course, they have their First Amendment, which enshrines the right to freedom of speech in law. It's frequently tested, and I would imagine it'll be tested again in the months and years to come. But in Britain, we don't have anything. We haven't like that. We only have sort of statute and precedent because, of course, we don't have a written constitution. Now it seems Bruce Daisley, the former head of Twitter, says that Elon Musk should face arrest if he comes to Britain for inciting UK rioters. That seems going a long way, doesn't it? Personal sanctions and even the threat of an arrest warrant. And this reflects what Sir Mark Rowley, the police commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, was saying, that he wouldn't be afraid to extradite people from the United States for things they've posted online. Now, I mean, this is all going a bit far, isn't it?
It's an incredible thing, Basil, but I'm not looking for positives or negatives, guys. I'm not. It's just a fact, okay? What happens, often these things can trigger a new world, and it might sound a bit spiritual, but it's not. I've talked, as you know, ad nauseum on this show about when a baby chick pecks its way out of an egg, the poisons build inside the egg, which triggers the pecking. I say it on every show. And the baby bird's got to peck its way out. What this is doing, this is part of the poisons in our system, which are coming to the fore now, rising, which are forcing people to peck or create something different or resist. When we were in London, it was terrible in the lockdowns and things like that. But people stood up and they got on with it. Now it's getting to the point where that you won't be allowed to even do that, or if it's digital, your bank account will be shut down and you'll be turned starving in a moment. And you can see they're making an example of people. Yes, there are sort of far right sort of Muslim hating people. Yes, there is. But a lot of those people in those demonstrations were really good people who've just had enough, who were going to food banks. I know people who are going to food banks here in Totnes who can't get a flat. A guy I know in Cardiff, he came in my shop the other day. He was going to kill himself. He's living in a car. Yet if he came across on a boat, he could be put in a hotel. So, I'm up for everyone being free, but this has gone mad. But as I said, we've got to say it. This is part of I don't like the word awakening, but it's part of the smelling salts, if you like.
The growing pains. The growing pains of a new society, Jason.
It's triggering a new birth, but what people must do is they mustn't sit around waiting. They must get motivated now and create new systems. How do you do that within this? It almost seems impossible. And the fact that it seems impossible is very worrying, because that will tell you what slavery actually is, But the bars are becoming more visible on the prison now. And that's positive. It's not negative. We need to create new worlds and new systems, independent of government control. Or, as I've warned for ad nauseum for 30 years, once it comes, it could be too late.
Yes, you're echoing what our guest last week, Professor Tony Hall, said more directly in his case with respect to the genocide, because we've got a really bizarre scenario at the moment, of the worst possible kind, whereby genocide is being normalized. We're all supposed to just sort of accept blithely that hundreds of people can be massacred on a Sunday afternoon while preparing to pray in a school to which they've already been displaced several times. And if you say anything against it, well, then you are a terrorist supporter. It's really completely inverted. But we'll talk about that and how to solve the rest of the world's ills with Jason right after these headlines.
We're the pinup boys and poster girls for free speech. We just don't look as impressive as Vladimir Putin shirtless on a horse. Yeah. 24/7, 365. We never stop sifting fact from fiction, misinformation from the truth, from government overreach to the latest on mandates, big tech censorship to propaganda gone mad. Listen to TNT Radio and get the news and views direct from our expert presenters and commentators anywhere you go. Ask Alexa or Google to play TNT Radio, or download the TNT Radio app for free from the App Store or Google Play. Today's News Talk. This is TNT Radio.
And welcome back to the program with me, Basil Valentine, today, Monday, the 12th of August. Jason, I'm seeing a rather depressing story on The Guardian this afternoon. South Londoners in the London borough of Bromley raised £3,000 to give Paul Spears, age 63, a holiday. He's a street cleaner, but it seems Veolia, who are the waste management company that employ him, say he can't accept the gift and that his staff are prohibited from accepting gifts or incentives. He was a particularly cheerful chap and used to do a very good job and cheered everyone up with his presence. So locals got together and raised £3,000 to give him a stonking holiday, and these officious jobsworths, and not even the council, Veolia, whoever they are, one of these outsourced companies, says he can't accept the gift. This is exactly the kind of thing we've got to undo, isn't it? This is the very opposite of a healthy, happy society, of the great society that David Cameron talked about. This is the polar opposite, Jason.
Well, this is when madness is becoming normal, and disgraceful behavior is becoming normal. People say, oh, here he goes again. I'm Greek, I'm expressive. It's disgraceful that they were stopping people feeding homeless people, Basil, right? Have you seen it? Actually dragging you out. If you feed a homeless person, there's food banks everywhere. But this is the thing, you see, this is where it comes back to slavery. I don't want to keep pulling it back here, but the slaves aren't allowed to make their own decisions. You can't give a dustman, a beautiful man. I always say thank you to the guy outside my shop, the dustman. I'd like to give him some money. I do give people money, and give him a holiday. Why shouldn't you do that? It's a disgrace. And the postman that came that I met the other day, he was saying the same thing. It's becoming more and more difficult to even stop and speak to someone. They're monitoring you all the time. So it'll, again, listen, everybody. A mutual friend of ours gave me that the other day, Patrick Henningsen. Do you know something? Believe me, we are in big trouble. It's getting more Orwellian all the time. It's becoming normal, and the new kids coming up now. All us older ones will be gone. It's going to become normal. To be totally enslaved. I'm glad that happened to Farage, for instance, with his bank account got shut down. because that it's like, oh, if it happened to Farage, and now that he's worried, they were just talking this afternoon, he's worried that he might get put in prison. Literally, people are saying, put him in prison. He's not allowed to say anything, And the funny thing is, Basil, these are the very people who are resisting this and saying people like ourselves, if you will, for want of a better word, are troublemakers and we want a better world. These are the very people who have been enslaved and will be screaming for help further down the timeline when they can't say anything. They'll be locked in their 15-minute cities. They'll be told what to eat, told what to buy. And if they resist at all, their bank accounts will be shut off. Now, people have said to me, there's no way that would happen, Jason. But it will. I went to buy a drink the other night. I gave the man £10. Sorry, we don't accept cash. I said, well, how much is it? He said £7. I said, tell you what, keep the change. There's a tenner. No, we can't do it. We're not allowed to. So more and more and more, we won't be allowed to be kind. Basil, you can't give your ticket to someone in a car park now. I was in a car park 2 hours. You can't give your ticket to someone. Why? Because you've got to put your registration number on there, everybody. Has anyone resisted that? They should have smashed the machines to smithereens, Basil. Sorry to get excited. They're stopping you being kind. You can't give your parking ticket to someone. Why? Because firstly, it'll lose them some money, but you can't be kind. They don't like that. They want you to be suffering. See, I used to say this years ago, and people used to say, oh, come on. It is all inverted. You're right. It's absolutely inverted. There's people like Jim Gale, Derek Brose. I've had them on the show, planting their own food. Jim Gale had a guy in America came to his community the other day and came in and said, we don't like what you're doing. We might have to close you down. An inspector, Jim Gale, showed him round. It's all on video. Showed him round and said the guy cried. He gave up his job and now he's growing his own food and creating his own community. So the more the shackles come on us, people can't afford food, Basil. They can't afford to pay their bills. There's bailiffs coming to the house. Everyone I know in my community is like that. They're in fear. Fear is paralytic to consciousness and development, and it's choking people off. And it's got to change. How can we change it? You change it by action. You change it by creating something new. If you're stuck on the M5, then you've got to create a road that runs along it, meanwhile, and show the people inspirational communities. Natural Earth Eco Living, my wife's community project. We still can't get people. Basil, I got someone came in my house shop the other day. He's going to buy a house for 850,000, and he's a freedom-loving person. So what I'm saying is people still can't seem to come together and buy a couple of farms instead and create new communities. Abundance of food, water, electricity. Why we can't do it? Because I don't think we can believe we can do it yet. I think we're so brainwashed and conditioned that we are slaves, and we've lost our power. From when we're kids in school, we don't feel we can actually create anything different other than this. People have said to me, "How do you create something different, Jason?" It's impossible. It's not impossible at all. Everything's impossible, but it starts with a thought. Every system you see started with a thought, manifested into reality with mind and action. We've got to start doing it. Will we wait too long when they say you can't do that because it's digital? You're not allowed to do that anymore. I don't want to be a fearmonger. I see great hope, Basil, and I think all this is part of that new birth and it's tapping metal filings over a shape which says freedom. So I do believe this is a necessity, what we're going through now. The madness, the wars, the fear, the suppression. And I do think the choking hands of the system must squeeze tighter before people will act. I know people with £1 million houses. They got a little drive on their a little drive, a car, a little back garden. It's insanity. If everyone sold their house in my street, you could buy 5 farms with 200 acres each. What are people waiting for? We're just so conditioned. It's like an elephant in a circus. You tie its leg to the poster, Basil. It pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls, and in the end, it gives up. It accepts its slavery and accepts its situation. And we must never do that. We must always resist suppression, always, at any cost, for your children, for people who haven't been born yet, because they will suffer the consequences otherwise.
Well, what a tremendous speech, Jason. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. You made a couple of points that I just want to highlight. In particular, you said fear paralyzes consciousness and creativity, and that's exactly right. It is indeed endless stoking of fear, whether it's fear of COVID, fear of a third world war, or just fear of the other person that governments seem intent on stoking, because fear causes people to contract. Whereas what we should be doing is expanding our awareness, our creativity, and, as you say, creating community that way.
just the threat of punishment is enough, Basil. I mean, you only got to go back to school, and you look at kids in school, it's all about punishment and reward, not actual punishment, although in my school they used to hit us, but you get that, then you'll get this. You don't get that, you don't get this. So it's all about future punishment or liberation against being punished. But I mean, that is the thing. I'm not exaggerating when I say that fear is paralytic to consciousness and development and blossoming in a human being. I've said it for many, many years. And it is, you can control a dog with fear, but it chokes it off. It chokes its creativity off and its love off. And that's why, Basil, most people you see are little children, girls and boys, who are still girls and boys, little subservient little girls and boys from school. They had the stuffing knocked out of them. Then they left school, they went into a job. Then they had a boss to be frightened of. If he fires me, if I do something wrong, I'll lose my house. So it's all about fear, and it's very ubiquitous, and almost you can hardly see it, but it's like a virus. But if you make one mistake, people know it becomes very real. I've been homeless on a number of occasions, and I hadn't had any food, and I'd say I've helped from people. So not now, but you only make one mistake in this system, Basil, because people say, "Oh, it's a great system." One mistake, off the hamster wheel. If you just can't cope, if you're depressed or you're stressed or you lose your job, you have had it. You're on the okay. There's the dole and stuff, but you are literally a beggar then in the street. And I want to remind you. We've all been
that one mistake I was going to say could be something as small as liking a tweet. The wrong tweet, you liked it. Now Musk has made likes anonymous, which is a big step in the right direction. But nevertheless, you post the wrong thing, even if you just retweet, as you said, Jason, that could land you in prison. This is really Orwellian stuff.
It's Orwellian stuff, and it's becoming real now. And I've said it ad nauseum. I was screaming like this for years. I was always the nutcase in the family, but now it's becoming real. People have said to me in my family, "Hey, you were right." I don't say I was right. It was just like the truth, And we're getting to that point of no return now. Believe me, this guy was on about it a long time ago, right? So we're getting to that point, and believe me, it's the perfect thing. If you've got slaves and they're trying to escape, what are you going to do? You're going to build the walls of the prison bigger, And it's not. But let me tell you, it's not negative, and it's not depressing. I'll say this, Basil. This has got to be said. It's not depressing to see the system and have the courage to see it. Most people don't want to. It's too depressing, they think. But once you see the system and how it's designed to control you and enslave you for life, and then you pay £6,000 for a bloody, for a funeral, right, with no bunches of flowers from the government, then once you see it and you understand the system, like Gurdjieff said, it's liberating. It's not depressing because it makes you realize why you didn't feel quite right. All those years of your life, you knew something was wrong. You couldn't quite put your finger on it. And you thought, something's wrong and I can't quite. Well, what was wrong is you were enslaved from inception, from literally being born. You were born into slavery. And once you realize that, that's very liberating. It's not depressing. When I talk about this to people, they say, "Oh my God, now in other words, I don't have to blame myself for feeling depressed and drinking every night and feeling just generally down all the time. So I had to go to a job I hated and do these things I didn't want to do." No, you were right to feel that way. It was a natural symptom from a healthy spirit, body and mind trapped in a system that was driving it mad, a casino mental asylum. And it's going to change. I hope it hasn't.
A casino mental asylum. On that note, we've got to bring things to a close, Jason, but do come back very, very soon to continue this conversation. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jason Liosatos.
Anytime, Basil. Lots of love. Thanks to everybody.
See you soon. We're going to take a very short break now. When we come back, a hard pivot to geopolitics. Keir Starmer, Chancellor Scholz and Emmanuel Macron have all written this joint statement about the Middle East, but is it worth the paper it's printed on? I'll be asking Dirk Pohlman right after this short break.
Today's News Talk Radio, TNT.